recording started as well. I've opened up the webinar room a little earlier today so that we can jump in and say hello, and anyone who wanted to jump in early can. So please do say hello in the chat box if you are here live. I can see we've got a few of you have popped in already. I love it. It's so cute. This webinar software allows people to knock when they're here, but I haven't started the webinar and people were like knocking. I was like, oh, I'll let them play with the little knock thing because it's so cool. Oh, so good. Hello, Aisha from Ballarat. Hello, welcome. Jump on in and say hello. And we will be getting started in about 4 minutes. Love it. I love this topic. I have written but not yet published a post about this very topic. Ooh, interesting. I love it. We all need to contribute to this conversation, and that's something that I talk about in today's presentation. So very good. Just a quick note as well, this is a workshop style. So there will be a few times throughout today's workshop that I'll be asking you to write some things down for yourself or write some things in the comments box. So if you don't have pen and paper handy, if you, of course, if you're listening while you're driving, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But if you don't have pen and paper handy, I think you're going to want to have pen and paper handy. So or something to type into. I'm so old-fashioned. I'm like journal and pen, but you're welcome to jump in. Always have my pen and paper handy for a Tash webinar. Hello, Tiffany. Oh my goodness, so good to see you. Welcome. Now, while we're waiting for everyone else to arrive, I would love to invite you to let me know in the chat box a little, like a 1-sentence intro about your biz and also where we can follow you. And preferably, I'm getting really into Instagram at the moment, so I'd love to know your Instagram handle because I do love checking out all the members of our lovely posse. And give us a little 1-sentence summary of your biz and what you do, and your Instagram handle would be fabulous. Now, if you don't have Instagram, you're welcome to share like your Facebook page or something. A quick note, the chat box of this webinar is also recorded and is on the replay. It's part of the replay when we share the recording. So please be mindful of that with what you're sharing in the chat box, and also be mindful of that epic opportunity because not just the people here who are here live will see your little intro about your business, but also the people watching on the replay. Love it. Tea Bliss, organic herbal teas for women. Instagram, her handle is Sip the Bliss. I love that, Aisha. That is amazing. So cute. Sip the Bliss. Nice. So for those of you who are joining us here live, do let us know in the chat box a little sentence about your biz and your Instagram handle if you have one. If you don't, another link where we can follow you. That would be fine. Love it. I can see we've got Carolyn is typing something. I'm waiting. Tiffany's typing something. It's frustrating when I can see people typing stuff because I'm waiting. So please do let us know. I can see Jude is here as well. Kelly's here. Nadia's here. Hello. Sam is here. Is that Nadia Jacobson? Because it says you're in Vegas. I'm assuming you're using a VPN right now. Hello. Oh, jump on in. Yes, we've got lots of people driving in now. We'll get started in just 1 minute. So in the meantime, as I said, please do share a little 1-sentence intro to your biz. And, it's different, It's different, Nadia. Hi. And your Instagram handle as well, providing women in business with website and tech support to get them moving forward. Currently on Facebook. My goal for Q2 is to work on Instagram, so you can catch me at Tiffany Marie Studio. Love it. Thanks, Tiffany. Hi, Sam. I amplify the voice of small business in the digital space at 10_humans. Ooh, fascinating. I've got to go and find that so I can find out more. Oh, and I missed Carolyn, The Soul Company, ethically made jewelry, clothing, bags, and wallets from around the globe at The Soul Company on Instagram. Love it. All right. Whilst I share my slides, I will leave you to keep doing your introductions. And let's dive in and get started with today's presentation. Hello, Heather. Welcome. Nick's here now too. Hello, Nick. Good to see you. Okay, so let's dive in because I've got so much to share with you today, and I want to make sure we get through it all as quickly as possible. Nick helps women to stop dieting and start nourishing. Ooh, nice. I love it. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my slides now. Can everyone see welcome to the workshop? Can someone just let me know? Because I just used a little different way to switch then. Hopefully that worked anyway. Let's move this. Looks like it's showing up fine. So before we begin, I would like to, first of all, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands, waterways and skies across Australia and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. At the moment, I'm not in Australia. I'm currently in New Zealand on the land of Ngāti Tahu. But Tash, Corbin Pty Ltd is an Australian business, and I would like to thank the traditional custodians for sharing and caring for the land, waterways and skies in which my business was born and will continue to flourish. As a big welcome to this consent-based marketing workshop, I would like to first and foremost just say thank you so much for being here. I shared in my email newsletter yesterday that this is actually a pretty tricky subject for me to discuss, and it's something that I've been very passionate about and shared about a lot with my closest audiences over the last few years. And I'm getting a little braver and a little braver each time and sharing it with more and more people and broader audiences. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of the marketing and sales strategies that are being taught by some people that I really love and admire are not built on consent. And I feel like sometimes it's a little to call out that behavior and say, actually, I don't think that that's an appropriate sales strategy or an appropriate marketing strategy. So I want to say a big thank you for being here and allowing me to share this information, and also helping me to practice sharing this with a larger and larger audience. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tash. I am a total business geek. I had my first business at 8 years old, crushing up fool's gold, pyrite stone, and selling it as glitter at school. It wasn't a very profitable business, but it was a very fun one, and it felt like it was my heart's work for sure. And ever since then, I've been fascinated with business, and I have had an amazing journey with having this current business since 2013. I specialize in lean business. So that is business where you are proving that people are willing to pay for your services before you invest a lot of money up front. And I'm also the host of the Heart-Centered Business Conference and a speaker. I am 6'2". So that's 187 centimeters, 188 centimeters, I think. So when we meet in real life, I will probably have to squat for our selfie. I say this all the time, but it's okay. I've got epic quads. And I'm also the mama to a beautiful rescue dog from Bali. Her name is Munchkin. She's not here right now. She's taking her best friend Chief home. So I normally introduce Munchkin because she's usually sitting next to me and sometimes can get up and shake or groan or make some noise. And so I always warn people that Munchkin's in the room. She's not here today. So I thought I would share a little bit of Munchkin spam with you. So I just want to explain what these photos are. So if you've ever seen the Steven meme, that's her best Steven. That photo is taken in Singapore. This photo was taken of her in Bali when we bought her this beautiful princess bed, and she totally loved it. This is her 3 days after we took her in. She was such a teensy little puppy. This is her at the fanciest Airbnb I've ever stayed in. It actually had a throne in it, and she absolutely adored that throne, and that was where she sat every day because she could see out from the high rise from that seat. So she claimed that as her seat. The photo with the scooter, that was her favorite way to get around when we lived in Bali. She would sit in the little footwell of our scooters. She did it for mine and for Davey's. That's my partner, Davey, there. And I very unsafely took this photo whilst I was scooting behind them, because whenever we would scoot together, if Davey was in front, she would always look back and watch me and make sure I was still following. And this photo here on the right is her passport photo. She is such a well-traveled little pooch now. So she has been in Bali. That's where we took her in. And then in order to get her to Australia, we've been on quite a spectacular journey that started with getting her over to Jakarta. Then she flew to Singapore. She got stuck in Singapore for a couple of years. Then now we live in New Zealand for her. So we couldn't take her straight to Australia from Singapore. She needed to come to New Zealand first. And so she was the reason we were in New Zealand when COVID hit. And I'm so grateful for that, because it has been, of all the places in the world to be, whilst there's been a global pandemic, New Zealand has been one of the best places. We totally nailed it here. So it's all because of this beautiful dog, and I love her so much. And that's just a little clue as to why I love her so much. But let's move on from the Munchkins fam. Above all else, what I would love for you to remember about me is that I love business. I believe that women do it best, especially in the online business world, because of the things we're going to start talking about today. And I believe that with money, we are going to change the world together by coming together, supporting each other, uplifting each other, and making epic income through our businesses. We are going to change the world. Evidence has shown time and time again that when women have economic power and wealth, that the entire community benefits. And when it comes to the online business world, our community is worldwide. Beautiful. So today's plan is to discuss why marketing can feel icky, how consent and marketing intersect. We haven't even started, Caroline. You're totally fine. The power of consent as a foundation in your business and why it's good business. It actually results in more money. And we're going to look in at some practical strategies to build a consent-driven business. So one of the things I'm going to invite you to do in today's seminar, in today's workshop, a little later, is to share with me some of the strategies that you've been taught that maybe as we go through this presentation, you start to think, oh, wait, is that consent-driven? Or is there a way I could make this more grounded in consent? So as we go through today's presentation, if there's something that you are currently doing or you've been taught to do in your business or told you should do in your business, and as you're listening to this presentation, you start to get like that weird butterfly, anxious-y feeling in your belly, like, oh, hang on, is that consent-driven? Note it down. We're going to discuss that today. I want this to be a workshop in which we talk about your business strategy, not just business strategy in general as a principle. So I will invite you a little later in today's workshop to share with me any strategies, and there's no judgment. This is a totally safe space to share any strategies where you are a little worried as to whether it's consent-driven and how to make it more consent-driven if there's something that needs to change. So we're going to have a very frank and open conversation. I've got some examples of strategies that might look a little innocuous on the surface, but are actually built through on a basis that it isn't consent-driven or is built on fear. And so we will talk about those. But if you've also got some that you would like to discuss, then we will have time to do that in today's presentation. And that's towards the end of the presentation today. At the end of today's presentation, I will also let you know if you would like to hire me as your mentor to continue growing your business. I will let you know about my takeoff program. That is how I mentor women in business, and particularly service-based businesses. I know we've got some people with product-based businesses here today. If you're looking for a mentor and you have a product-based business, just let me know. I have plenty of peeps I can recommend you to that I 100% trust and that I know also have built their businesses on consent. And if you have a service-based business and you are looking for a mentor and you'd like that to be me, I will let you know how we can do that at the end of today's presentation. Thank you, Sam, for saying takeoff is amazing. I did not ask her to say that. Thank you, Sam. Before we begin this presentation, and whenever I talk about consent, I ensure that we have this conversation. Please be mindful of others, both live and watching the recording, in relation to chat and the comments here. In today's presentation, we are going to be talking about the topic of consent. And there are parts of our lives where conversations specifically about lack of consent can be bring up trauma for people and can be really difficult for them. So in this workshop, I am not going into the space of non-consensual sexual or physical interactions. We do not go there in this workshop, and that is on purpose. This is not a trauma conscious presentation method of me presenting a one-way presentation and your only ability to interact with me is in comments. So please consider your comments and consider other people who may have experienced trauma in that space when popping comments into the chat box. So we are going to keep our conversation about consent in marketing, and please no offhanded comments about relating this to physical or sexual engagements without consent, in order to just ensure that we are being conscious of those people who may have experienced trauma in the past. We want to keep this conversation feeling safe and light. So we are only talking about consent as it relates to marketing practices. I will not be going into how this relates to other areas. So please be mindful of that. I'm sure as heart-centered, soul-driven entrepreneurs here in this space, you are happy to be conscious of how we engage with people in this community and making sure that this feels like a beautiful, safe space for everyone. Okay, so let's dive into talking about marketing and sales. And I'm sure you'll agree that the overall feelings towards marketing and sales, particularly when it comes to how we think about other marketing and sales people, that it's despised, it's mistrusted, and it's often avoided as well. So I don't know about you, but when I see some of those pop-up booths in the middle of the shopping centre with the salespeople with their big saucer eyes ready to pounce, I move around. I make it very clear I'm not here to be sold to. I don't want to be marketed to right now. Thank you very much. No, I'm just going to keep walking. And studies have also shown that when it comes to reliable, trustworthy information, advertising is down towards the bottom of the list as well. So I'd love to invite you to let me know in the chat box, how do you feel about marketing and sales? And I want you to think about it not just from the perspective of you doing marketing and sales in your business, but also being marketed to and sold to. How do you feel about marketing in general and sales in general? Not just from the perspective of what you do, but also from the perspective of being marketed at or sold to. So dislike it intensely. Like, you can be totally honest with me here, right? Better out than in. Yeah, let's talk about it. Nicole said, worst are the backpackers on the street who try to guilt you into monthly payments for charities. Yes, and if you look into some of those, the percentage of the money that you are giving each month that actually goes to the charity is very small. So marketing and sales, commission-only sales tactics are being used to get money into those charities, but it's coming at a significant administrative and commission cost, right? And so, yeah, that can definitely be something that's really uncomfortable for people. When we're donating, when we're providing money to businesses or to charities, you want to ensure that as much as possible of that money is going where it needs to go. But if those salespeople weren't on the street, then the charities will get nothing from those people who walk past, potentially. So, it's a bit of a dichotomy sometimes, because that sales process is, part of how those charities operate and make money and have the money to be able to do the good work that they do. But it comes at the price of having really aggressive salespeople on the street who are taking a significant portion of that money for having made the sale. So, yeah, if you don't like sales and marketing, don't start a not-for-profit because fundraising is even harder. Yes. Shelley said, I think here we go again. Sam said, I love being marketed and sold to intelligently, but when it's aggressive or not tailored, it's yuck. Yes. Heather said phone sales, energy companies. Yes. I don't have a problem with being marketed at in general as I buy things from ads. However, most coaches seem to have the shame tactics. Pop-up people at shopping centre avoid as well. Yes. As soon as I hear, but you want the best for, or you need to invest to help your business. And my favorite, I'm sure you have a business credit card you can use. Anything that is manipulative turns me off. Yes. I don't like being sold to. I like being educated on how I could benefit from something for me to have a space to make my own decision. Right. Like, isn't that amazing, Juliet? That clarity around, sure, tell me about the information, but I want space to make my own decision. I don't want to make a decision under pressure. Yes. Okay. This is so good. Nicole said, I've always felt yucky for the sales part, but you've started to show me why. I think there's more to that sentence coming. Cold contact messaging. Ooh, yes. Okay. So we've got it all out, right? We've unleashed our feelings about marketing and sales. So we're going to play a little game of Never Have I Ever. And I would love to know, out of these 7 things, which of these things have happened to you? Yeah. What I despise is people who have no health qualifications and haven't spoken to you since high school, want to sell you pills and shakes. Oh my gosh, Caroline. Yes, we could have a whole webinar about that. So I want you to let me know the numbers of these, of which of these have happened to you. Have you ever received unsolicited promotional emails? If you have, give me a number 1 in the chat box. Have you ever had someone friend you on Facebook and then send you a message? They might chat a little bit at first, but it always leads to a pitch. Number 2, have you ever had someone friend you? You might be in the Heart Centre community. It's not allowed in the Heart Centre community, but it happens. Someone friends you. They'll say, I'm so interested in your business. Oh, yeah. Sounds really amazing. I'd love to connect with you. And then you think you've made a friend. And then they say, oh, by the way, do you want to follow my Facebook page? Maybe have you ever had a stranger slide into your DMs? I actually was offered $7 million today in my direct messages on Instagram just before I started this webinar. So have you ever had someone slide into your direct messages? I get a lot of direct messages these days. I think my podcast must have hit a certain number of downloads to have been flagged as a potential advertising space. I had a lot of strangers reaching out to me saying that they have the perfect guest for my podcast. That's been happening a lot lately. Number 4, signed up for a freebie and then been flooded with emails. I have been talking a lot about in January. I decided I was going to sign up for a YouTube course because I really want to learn the ins and outs of YouTube a little more. And someone said to me, sign up for the ladies mailing list first because you'll get a 30% off coupon if you sign up to her mailing list. Well, signing up to her mailing list involved 29 emails in 3 days. Yeah. So number 4, definitely been there for me. Number 5, gone to a webinar and then finished that webinar just feeling like really panicked or really sad. Like, like you went to the webinar because you wanted to learn and you were excited, but it actually left you feeling worse. Has anyone had that one? Number 5. Number 6, felt pressured or wrong for having questions or needing to think about an investment. So I shared yesterday when I was promoting this presentation how I was on a sales call with someone for a $25,000 mastermind. I was so excited. I was ready for it. And I said, I have this 48-hour sleep on it rule with my partner. I'm going to have a chat to him about it. And she said to me, oh, I thought you were a strong, financially independent woman. I can't believe you have to ask him permission. And like really, really judgmental and made me feel really wrong about it. And I ended up not buying because of that conversation. It was so pressured and so manipulative. Or number 7, purchase something and been super excited at the time, but then day by day, you start to wonder why you did it. I definitely had this as I was leaving a low price conference that I went to, and I fell for the run to the back of the room and sign up for this thing. And as I was driving home, the knot in my stomach just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was a 2-hour drive home from it. I was living in Ballina and I went to this thing in Brisbane. And as I was driving home, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Oh my gosh, what have I done? Oh my gosh, what have I done? And they did have a 7-day money back guarantee for that one. But in order to get the 7-day money back guarantee, you had to show that you had completed the first 2 modules and done this homework and and they hadn't even given us the login details for this new program. It was just anyway. So I've actually had all 7 of these happen to me, and it looks like a lot of you have experienced at least one of these particular behaviors, and you've had it happen to you. I mean, already we can say no wonder that we feel like we don't want to do sales and marketing. No wonder we are so conscious of how we want to show up online. And this is why I believe women do it best, right? When it comes to online business, because women are so considerate, and when we're so empathic that when we experience that feeling from that behavior, we don't want to do that to other people. And so we take so much responsibility for the impact that we have on others in our sales and marketing processes. And I believe it's women who will lead the way in changing the face of sales and marketing. So now I want to flip it to the other side. I want to know, have you ever been told to email cold contacts? Have you ever been told, yeah, just reach out to people on email, find them go on Google and find their email address and send them an email? Have you, and I want you to give me the numbers again. So have you ever been told to email cold contacts? Number 2, have you ever been told to friend request people you don't know as a marketing and business strategy? Have you ever been told to DM people who comment on your posts on Instagram or Facebook, or they like your post in a Facebook group, and you're a business marketer, a mentor, a messaging person you followed, a business strategy person you followed said, what you do is if people like or comment, you slide into their direct messages, send them a message. Number 4, being told that you need to send daily or more emails, especially in a launch. Yeah. So you are told, if you're launching something or after a webinar, you need to send at least 10 emails in 7 days, those types of things. Have you been told not to give away too much in your webinars because you need to save the good stuff for your paying clients? Has anyone had that one? Being told that you need to close on the sales call. If you let them get off the call, you're going to lose the sale. You need to make sure that you get them on that sales call. Have you been told number 6? And number 7 is being told that a no or an objection is just a step closer to a yes with the right strategies and scripts. Have you ever had someone say to that, you're getting lots of objections in your sales calls? You are inches away from a yes. You just need my magical sales formula. Has anyone been told that one? Right. With marketing strategies like this being taught as the norm, it is no wonder we don't want to do it, because all of it is so gross. It is no wonder that we shy away from even learning marketing strategy in the first place, because we don't want to do to others as we have had done to us. And each of those 7 things was the exact same thing as I'd said, has anyone ever done this to you? And again, we can see not only are we having it done to us, we are being told that that's what we need to do to others in order to be successful. It is disgusting. Consent matters. Full stop. Consent-based marketing isn't just about asking for permission, but it starts with permission. Consider the impact of your actions, not just your intent. So you might have a beautiful intention of healing thousands and thousands of women, and your intentions behind having a business and growing your business and making sales are completely pure, but you've been taught marketing strategies that are traumatizing people in the process. So as powerful, heart-centered marketers, it is important for us not just to tell ourselves, well, I'm a good person and I want to do good things and my business is changing the world. So if that's what I've got to do to make the sale, I guess that's just what I got to do. Instead, we take responsibility for the impact of our actions. And consent-based marketing is grounded in being discerning about the strategies and the tactics that you use in your business. This is particularly important because marketing is how you start a relationship with your audience members. And how many of us have had our first interaction with someone being them crossing the line of consent for us? That person that so many people recommended that I should be learning from when it came to YouTube strategy, when my first ever interaction with her, the start of our relationship was in 3 days. She sent me 29 emails. How is that a strong and trust-built start to our relationship? I have other people that I've learned from and followed, and my first ever interaction with them was discovering that they had just lied to me. I signed up for their free live webinar that just so happened to be on tonight. And then when I got there, it became bleedingly obvious that it wasn't live. It was pre-recorded. And the chat box was completely faked. How is that a strong start to a relationship? Is that really how we want to connect with our audiences? By lying to them, crossing the boundary, by overriding their consent, and by doing things that they never gave us permission to do in the first place. This is particularly important because people are paying attention. We know how to spot a fake webinar now. We know how to spot when we're being lied to. We know that if we sign up for something or we pop onto your landing page and your countdown timer says it closes in 3 hours, we know if we come back tomorrow, it'll still say 3 hours. We know. People are wising up to this stuff. Consumers are so much more wary about the way that they are treated. And because most marketing strategies that are still being taught today are not consent-based. And this is so important for us to take a stand and step up and say enough is enough. The great news about this is that when you build your marketing strategies with consent-based foundations, you feel better. Your audience will feel better as well, and you'll make more sales. I have seen time and time again and had gurus and mentors say to me time and time again, if you don't use this, you will not get as much conversion, and I've blown their conversion rates out of the water. Yeah, Shelley said, live webinar, pick your time, 8 p.m., 8:15 p.m., 8:30 p.m. Yes, have been to a few webinars this week that have just been pictures. When you sign up, you'll find out. Absolute BS, yes. So when I had a particular marketing mentor that I was working with, and he wanted me to create I call it manufactured urgency, where as soon as it's a tripwire, so as soon as someone signs up for something free, they have a personalized countdown timer that they have 24 hours to buy at a discounted rate, then the discount disappears. And he said to me, if I don't have that urgency on my tripwire, my conversion rate is about 0.5%. If I do have that countdown timer, my conversion rate is about 6%. So I said to him, if I can get better than 6% without a countdown timer, can I have it without the countdown timer? He's like, yep, okay, I'm totally open to this. Great mentor, by the way, because I've actually started him on consent-based marketing strategies, and he's very open to learning about it. And so I set up my little upsell offer after someone had signed up to working with me. This was in 2017. And using consent grounded strategies, my conversion rate, 11.5%. 11.5% without creating scarcity, without using these fear-based strategies. So the beautiful news for us is not that it's not true that using their pushy, non-consent based, fear-based marketing strategies, they make more money than us. Actually, using consent-based strategies, my audience stay around longer, my conversion rates are higher, and I have so much trust with my audience. They spread the word about Tash Corbin without me even having to ask them. I've had people in this chat box already say, Takeoff is an amazing program, without me ever asking. So consent is not just something that makes you feel better. It actually is a better business practice that converts better. Imagine building a marketing approach that you're actually excited to implement each week. Think about how you were feeling about sales and marketing at the start of this webinar. You're like, ugh, of course I don't want to do it. Look at all the things that I'm being told I have to do. Imagine instead, when you wake up, you cannot wait to get out there and do your marketing actions for the day because you know your marketing makes people feel good, whether they buy or not. Imagine falling in love with marketing because your marketing makes people feel good. Isn't that the whole goal? We didn't get into this business and start a business to make people feel terrible in order to make money. And yet, time and time again, we're being told that's what we need to do in order to make that money. But it's just not true. And the beautiful thing is that I'm living proof of this. This is me. I'm not a marketing and business geek because I love working out how to squeeze money out of people. That's not why I got into this. That's not why I love and adore this. That's not why I'm here presenting this webinar. I'm not here looking to squeeze every single dollar I can out of everyone who's here in this room. I am not a marketing geek because of the squeezing money out and manipulating people. And if you use this tripwire and this lead magnet, I love marketing because I know I'm actually helping and empowering my audience throughout the process. I know that here on this workshop today, I am going to help you feel amazing. I don't need to make you feel fear. I don't need to in this webinar make you feel like there's some sense of urgency and you have to make a decision on the webinar. You've got time if you want to investigate potentially having me as your mentor. And I know that everyone who leaves this webinar today will feel like they know how to start reviewing their marketing strategies and building their marketing strategies based on consent-driven decisions. And that makes me feel amazing. That's why I love marketing. It's not because I have some random magical secret to convince people to buy something they don't need. I'm not here for that. I am here to empower, educate, and inspire in my marketing, regardless of whether they buy or not. So this is the big difference, I feel, between consent-driven practice and non-consent-driven practice, is that I am here focused on ensuring everyone leaves this webinar feeling amazing and empowered with strategies, regardless of whether they choose me as their mentor or not. In non-consent-driven marketing strategies, the people who don't buy are burned. They are absolutely stricken off. You'll see this time and time again where marketers will say, 25% of people unsubscribe once they join my list within the first 30 days. Those people aren't my people. I don't care about them. But that is actually creating an environment of this burn and churn kind of mentality. You have to bring in so many more leads and spend so much more money on your marketing practices because you're using strategies that make people feel uncomfortable, that make people feel uneasy, that make people physically repulsed, and they run away, and you are told that's okay, they're not your people. Your people are the kind of people who like being manipulated. Your people are the kind of people who'll say yes and say yes in the chat box 14 times and can I get an amen? And they will just shout back at you everything that you ask because you've trained them to do that. And that is not treating your audience as humans. And that is not consent-driven practice. So are you ready to fall in love with consent-driven, empowering, high-conversion marketing? This is the thing that I love and adore about being in business, is that we can not just fall in love with serving our paying clients, we can fall in love with marketing and sales because we know it's deeply aligned to our values. Here are the 4 foundations of consent. Number 1, legal compliance. Number 2, seeking permission. Number 3, transparency. And number 4, responsibility. Shelley said 99% of people seem to be more focused on how much they can earn, etc., not focused on how they can help. Isn't that why we are in business? Yes, I love it. 1,000 times yes. Thank you, Nicole. My business has paused massively because I recently got told all this stuff to do and was screaming no. Right. Brilliant. You are in the right place. So we're going to go through these 4 consent foundations in detail together. And as we go, I'm going to give you some examples of ways to introduce and create your foundations based on consent. Again, as we go through, if there are things that you've been taught or told to do in your business and you're now thinking, is that consent driven? I'm not sure. Write it down and we're going to discuss it in the next section of this workshop. So, foundation number 1, legal compliance. Step 1, make sure you're not breaking the law. In most countries, there are privacy laws and anti-spam laws that require you to have consent to email someone. There are still lots of loopholes and ways around that. There are still businesses that sell email lists and all sorts of things, qualified leads, whatever they want to call them. But in most cases, legal compliance requires that you don't break those privacy laws or anti-spam laws. Unfortunately, whilst email restrictions are specific and generally enforced, so for example, if you email someone from an email service and they say, I didn't give permission to receive this email, you do actually get penalized in terms of your ability to send to your larger list, the deliverability of your emails. It's enforced in a very roundabout way. While it is specific and enforced, social media is a completely different story. So direct messaging people is completely unregulated. And platforms don't monitor or manage that private messaging. On Facebook, I think the trigger is around like 75 to 100 times. You can copy paste a message in Messenger 75 to 100 times a day before Facebook will take away your ability to message people. So platforms don't monitor or manage private messages closely. And it's usually based on the user reporting and providing control on that. So if you spam someone, it's up to the user, the recipient, to say, I did not consent. So the action has already been taken and then you report the action afterwards. So legal compliance is not best practice. It is the bare minimum. Yeah, legal compliance is the bare minimum when it comes to consent-based practice. Just left and unlike people on Facebook that have stepped over consent boundaries. Beautiful, Jude. I think it's important that we do it. The next foundation is seeking permission. So ensuring that you have permission to engage or take an action before you do so. And I'm going to give you 3 examples here of where you may have been taught a strategy that is not permission sought, and I'll show you what the alternative would be. So instead of just sliding into someone's direct messages if they comment on something, let's say you do a post on Instagram talking about something you're really passionate about, and someone comments and says, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm struggling with. I'm so glad I read that message today. That is not permission for you to send them a private message at all. Full stop. However, if they have engaged in the comments, I think it's very reasonable and permission-based to comment back and say, thank you so much. Is it okay if I send you a direct message about this? All you're doing is asking for permission first. That simple step creates such trust with your audience. And yet it is a step that most marketers skip. Just ask permission. And I would also say it would be better practice if you were clear on your reason for sending that DM. So if someone's commented, I just really needed to hear this morning, and you were like, oh, I've got this free detailed training on this, I think that they would love it, then say that in the comments. Thank you so much for your comment. I have a more detailed training on this topic. Is it okay if I send you a DM with the link? How beautiful is that? You are ensuring you have permission before you slide into that direct messages. So much more tangible, so much more powerful, and so much more consent driven. And Sam said, just ask me, I'll probably say yes. I don't think I've ever said no to people when they've said, oh my gosh, I've got something that I could help with that. Is it okay if I send you a direct message? I generally say yes. But if I haven't had that permission and you just slide straight into my DMs, I generally block. Just from that one simple difference. Instead of cold pitching, so for example, you're at a networking event and someone asks you what you do. You say, I am a parenting mentor, and the person says, oh, my child, well, I think I really need your help. Instead of just going, here's how I help, you can buy from me, or I'm going to send you info because that's exactly what I do. Or, oh my gosh, that's my specialty. Here's what I do. Instead of just going straight into a pitch, ask permission. Wow. Oh, well, that is something that I do. Would you like me to tell you how I help people with this? What a beautiful way of ensuring consent. Just ask. Just ask. Would you like me to tell you? Instead of, here's how I can. Again, a really small difference in the way that you do it, a ginormous difference in the impact that it has. And then finally, instead of fishing questions, now this is a strategy that is taught all over the internet. I know because as the facilitator of a group of over 34,000 women, my group is often targeted for phishing strategies, which is why it's banned in my group. But this is where you're encouraged to go into a Facebook group. Let's say you are a dating mentor for single ladies. I've seen this strategy taught. We're encouraged to go into a group and say, hey, all the single ladies, what's the best thing about being single? And you answer thinking they genuinely want to know the answer to the question. And you say, oh, the best thing about being single is not having to share the bed. And then instantly you'll receive a DM. Hey, single gal, this is my area of expertise. Come follow my Facebook page. It was a fish. That's all it was. They're not interested in your answer. They're just interested in the fact that you're single. Has anyone else been told to do this? Nicole said, I'm in a group and can see those who always use phishing questions or yes letters. I deliberately haven't responded just because I don't want the DM. Yeah. So instead of phishing questions, if you are in a space where you can ask a question or ask research questions or anything like that, simply be upfront about why you're asking. So instead of phishing questions, give the reason why you're asking. So one of the questions that I ask in my takeoff community and on my Facebook page all the time is, I'm recording a batch of podcasts next week. What do you want to learn from me? Right? So people know when they answer, I'm actually interested in the answer. And here's how I'm going to use that information. I'm not going to slide into your DMs. I'm not going to use this as an opportunity to pitch to you. I'm being clear about why I'm asking that question. It makes a significant difference to the way that people respond. And again, I talked about this at the start of the presentation. People are much wiser to this now. And the fabulous Nicole just said, she's in that group. People don't reply to those questions now. The people who do reply are the ones who don't realize what's happening. They're getting fewer and far between, right? So where phishing questions used to get 400, 500 answers on them now, they'd be lucky to get 20. These strategies don't work anymore, and they also make people really hesitant to engage in Facebook communities. Is that the kind of world you want to create? Instead of just asking questions for engagement's sake, be clear on why you're asking questions. It is also an important way of showing respect for people's time. You know, some people put in a lot of time and energy to answering the questions that they see asked in Facebook communities. And then you realize it was just a phishing question. You think, I've just wasted 15 minutes of my life giving you really important and vulnerable information about my situation because I thought I was helping you. And instead, you just wanted to sell to me. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. So let's not do it. So layer 2 was permission. Foundation number 3 is transparency. No more surprise pictures. You'll have noticed that at the start of this workshop, I said at the end of the workshop, I'm going to tell you how you can have me as your mentor. So there's no surprise, I'm pitching to you, or surprise pitches are also big on free 30-minute sessions. Anyone signed up to a free 30-minute session recently? I know I don't, because you get onto that and they say, oh, I want to practice. I signed up to one. I did. It would have been January. I'm practicing a new process of doing website audits for people. So if you would like a free 30-minute website audit, let me know. I'd love to practice on you. And I knew I was doing some changes to my website at that point in time. I thought, oh, what great timing. You can practice on me and I'm going to get the benefit of that practice. I got 2 tips to fix my website and a 25-minute sales pitch. And I was just like, are you kidding me? You said you needed to practice your website audits. What you're practicing on me is a sales pitch. You're not practicing a website audit. And I actually cut the person off at the 30-minute mark. I gave them their 30 minutes and I said, I'm going to cut you off here. It's been 30 minutes. I'm completely gobsmacked that you think this is a 30-minute website audit. You said you needed to practice website audits and all you've done is sold to me. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Whoever told you to use this as a strategy, you should fire. Get a better coach. I'm leaving. I was really blunt about it because I was just so frustrated that my time had been wasted. When I work with people one-to-one, my rate is $2,500 an hour. I should have billed the person $1,250, honestly. So no more surprise pitches. You're transparent about what's going to happen. If the person had said, I will give you a couple of quick tips and then let you know how I can help build your website or upgrade your website, I wouldn't have signed up because I wasn't in the market for a website person. I just hired a website person, but I thought it would be really useful information and a practice for them. No more surprise pitches. Great email onboarding. Now, I want to give a big round of applause to Leonie Dawson. When I signed up for her, she's got 2 email lists. One is a weekly love note and one is a daily emails. And in her email onboarding process, she says, be prepared. When I say daily, I mean daily. Like you're going to get everything just that I'm thinking about, anything that I've created. It is me sharing and being really transparent. It's almost like you've got a daily webcam into my life when you're on this mailing list. So if that's not your cup of tea, feel free to unsubscribe and just get my weekly love note instead, where I do a bit of a roundup. What a beautiful, open way to make it clear to people exactly what they're in for. So instead of just saying you'll get information from time to time, she's like, and then spewing you 17 emails in 4 days, she's like, you're going to get a lot of emails from me. And it's amazing, right? So I'm not saying you can't email people a lot, but if you're going to email people a lot, make sure you have their permission to do so and be transparent about that process. Clear and easy to follow refund policies. I was trying to sign up for a course last year and it said a 14-day money-back guarantee. So I went looking for the terms and conditions of that refund policy and could not find them anywhere. I then emailed the person and said, hey, I just wanted to follow up because it says there's a 14-day money-back guarantee, but there's no information on the terms and conditions of that money-back guarantee on the website. Could you please send the terms and conditions to me? And the person replied to me and said, if you're already looking for how you can get a refund and get an out from this program, I'm not going to sell it to you. Instead, make your refund policies upfront and clear and easy for people to follow. I think it's very important for you to be mindful of your legal obligations here as well. In Australia, there's no such thing as a no refunds policy. There are certain circumstances in which you are required to give a refund no matter what. No matter what your policy says, you are still required to give a refund. And so I think it's important to have very easy to understand and very easy to follow refund policies. I've seen refund policies before that say you can get a refund so long as you've done the work, but there is no information on what done the work means. So that actually needs to be stipulated in the refund policy. Be clear about that. I have seen this done by a lovely man called Ryan, not lovely, and he had one like that. It was a $15,000 program. You got a one-to-one mentoring session every single week with one of his coaches, so long as you continue to do the work. But it was not clear what do the work involved. And I found out from people who did purchase from him that do the work involved giving away 40 free coaching sessions every week if you weren't making sales, and giving the spreadsheet of those people and their email addresses and contact numbers and why they didn't buy from you to your coach every single week. Now, not only is that illegal because you're not following privacy laws in Australia, but also that was not transparent on the terms and conditions of the refund policy. So if that was challenged legally, I don't think it would stand. But who are the people who, when they discover what that is, they realize they can't do it? Women. It's women who don't have 40 hours of free coaching to give away a week because they've got kids, they've got household responsibilities, they've got jobs, and they take all of those other responsibilities seriously. Who, when they realize that they're not going to be able to do it, asks for a refund and then are just told, no, you haven't done the work, you're not eligible, and just runs away and goes, and blames themselves. Women. It is the women who are most impacted by these strategies and tactics because we are the first to say, it must have been me. I mustn't have read it properly. It must have been me. We've been programmed to be quiet, to be nice, and to not question authority. And so it is women who are most detrimentally impacted by dodgy marketing and sales practices. 100%. I 100% believe that. Number 4, set expectations. If you're going to send a lot of content and emails, just tell us. Just tell us. And be clear upfront about your boundaries and how we'll manage them. So something that I do inside the Takeoff program is I say to people, be the squeaky wheel. My boundaries are my responsibility. Here's how you can connect with me and ask me questions. And if you're worried that you're asking me too much or overstepping a boundary, relax, because I'll forgive you for stepping up to the boundary if you forgive me for saying, no, we'll need to leave that for a call. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? So what I've done in that Takeoff program is said to people, don't sit quietly and say, oh no, Tash won't help me. Tash can't help me with this. I'm worried. Ask and I'll let you know if it's across the boundary. And we will be all very, very open and totally okay with that. I won't be judging you for asking and you won't be upset that I've said no, right? So we're really clear on where those boundaries stand, and I'm taking responsibility for my boundaries in this program. You get to be a squeaky wheel. It is so clear to people. It is so encouraging for people. And also, probably because the program is full of women, I've never, ever, ever had to reinforce a boundary more than once. I will say, oh, no, that's not really covered in the Takeoff program, so we won't be able to discuss that. Is that okay? Yep, no, I totally understand, Tash. And it hasn't happened again. Yeah, because it is so clear what the boundaries are, and people are so conscientious about respecting those boundaries. And I have to encourage people. People will apologize for long posts. I'm like, don't apologize for the long post. That's all the information I needed. Send it to me. Give it to me. So being clear on boundaries and how you are going to manage them. I have set new boundaries, and since coming across you, Tash, I've made more boundaries. Oh, I love that, Nicole. I love it. All right. Final pillar, responsibility. Even though your intention is good, your impact could be harmful. And we need to take responsibility for that. So your responsibilities when it comes to consent-driven practice is not just in your impact, so the things that you share, but it's also the impact in your spaces. And this is why I pay quite a lot of money for my admin team to be available and monitoring my Facebook community almost 24/7, because it's important to me that my community are not impacted negatively by hate speech, by sexism, by racism. And so I take responsibility for what goes on in my spaces. I take responsibility for what comes up in the comments on my posts on social media, because someone who is, let's say someone with a disability stumbles across my page, they should not have to deal with ableist, defamatory comments that I've allowed to proliferate in my space, and they should not be responsible or have to deal with that if they didn't know that it was going to be coming. I think it's really important. And so I take responsibility not just for the impact of my behavior, but also for the impact of what's going on in my spaces. That requires stepping up and taking a bit of extra responsibility. That requires a little bit more investment in making that space safe, but it's really important to me. Next, listening to feedback with boundaries. How many people have heard marketers say, I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm not interested in your feedback. What other people think of my marketing is none of my opinion, none of my business. If they have a problem with me, they can take it elsewhere. They're just not my kind of person. That is the fast track to creating a beautiful big bubble of racism for yourself, a beautiful big bubble of sexism for yourself. It is important that we do listen to that feedback with boundaries. If someone is being derogatory towards you, or if someone is just not, your stuff is not their cup of tea, if someone doesn't like my eyebrows, then I don't necessarily need to listen to that feedback. But if someone says to me, hey, I've noticed that you've used this term and that's not really an appropriate term to use, it's important that I listen to that feedback. It's because of my listening to that feedback that I have moved forward in my in the way that I express how I work with people who are non-binary, because there has been some co-opting of the term women with an X, and so I need to make some radical changes in my business, and I'm still making them at the moment. And so that is important. I don't want to make trans women or non-binary people feel like they are less than by using that term. And so I won't use that term anymore. And so it's really important that I hear that feedback, because that feedback is big emotional labor for a lot of people to actually even broach the subject with me. Yeah. Everyone who wants a racism and sexism space will leave, and then who is left? Exactly, Jody. And that has happened in a group that I'm in. And the group is actually run by this amazing woman, but she's like, you are responsible for how you feel. If you are offended by what someone said in my group, it's your responsibility to deal with that and move on. You need to take sovereign responsibility for who you are and what you expose yourself to. And if you're not resilient enough to see that, then that's on you. It's not on me. And I was completely aghast at that. And now that group has become a bit of a cesspool for that same blinkered thinking. And I don't think that it's okay. Yeah. Got told last night to not be a lurker and don't bother coming to her free event if I wasn't serious and wasn't prepared to do what. Nick, gross. Consider those who don't purchase. So I've talked about that already. Even if people don't buy from me, I want them to leave feeling amazing and equipped and ready to go. Providing appropriate content warning. So content note or content warning where you are sharing content that may be harmful or triggering for people. Be mindful of that. Rejecting fear-based marketing and analyzing the strategies used. Why are you being told to put a countdown timer on that? Why are you being told to say there's only 3 spaces when you totally would take more than 3 spaces? Interrogating your bias and your privilege. Take responsibility for the behaviors and language that you exhibit in your spaces. Consider the difference. Consider the difference in trust. when you've taken responsibility and you've treated with people with respect and dignity, even when they don't buy from you. I know that my audience have a deep sense of trust in me, and I take that trust seriously. I've worked hard to earn that trust, and I will work even harder to keep it, because I know that that trust means that our spaces are safe, and it's creating an environment in which brilliant women-led businesses can flourish. And I'm very excited about that. Consider the difference in emotion. You know that saying that people don't remember what you say or what you do, they remember how you make them feel? That is 100% true in marketing as well. So consider the difference to your business where you are making people feel amazing with your marketing. Consider the difference in leadership, being seen as a role model of integrity versus resorting to trickery. Consider the difference in alignment. When you love your marketing and you know it's doing good in the world, your wobbles and your resistance fade. And consider the difference in your confidence. How much more confident would you feel about showing up, about marketing, and about sales, knowing it's deeply grounded in these amazing consent-driven strategies? For me, consent-driven practice is the right thing to do, and that's enough reason. But there are added bonuses of making more money, having longer-term relationships with my audience, and not needing to spend as much money on reach because I'm not churning and burning my audience. So I want you to think about your client attraction process. And most of you will have probably heard this before, but if you're new to the Tash Corbin world, then this is where we're really getting into the detail of your marketing strategy. This 5-step process is the core process of attracting and converting people into paying clients. And at each step of the way, you can make the decision to choose consent. So step number 1, reach your specific niche. This is how you're getting out there to cold audiences. When you are posting on social media, when you are creating content on your website, when you are doing guest blogs and posts and interviews, however, when you're doing ads, however you reach your cold audiences, consider consent in that process. Step number 2, once someone is in your audience, nurturing that audience. Again, taking responsibility for consent in that process. If you want to nurture your audience by sending them a weekly newsletter on email and you need to collect their email address to do that, gain consent, be upfront and transparent, and take responsibility for what you put into their inbox. I've talked a lot about when I was about a year into my business, I signed up to this person's mailing list, and every day she sent me an email that's the subject line was, "You're not gonna effing make it," or "Why you're effing struggling," or that, right? And it was all so heavy and so negative, and it really was like upsetting to me. The email itself was more like playing devil's advocate, and here's the opposite, but she didn't take responsibility for how she was showing up in my inbox each day. And I ended up having to unsubscribe because it was so overwhelming. And it made me start my day feeling like crap. And honestly, it wasn't until 4 or 5 weeks into this that I recognized it and saw the pattern. It was really alarming to me, because at that point in time, I was still a bit rose-colored glasses about women online and the marketing strategies that we use. I just assumed that we didn't do stuff like that because she was in a community where I really respected the leader, and I thought we were all on the same page, and it was just horrible. So when it comes to nurturing your audience, look at those 4 foundations: legal permission, transparency, and taking responsibility. Number 3 is then inviting qualified leads to engage in a richer and deeper way with you. I did that by inviting you to come to this workshop today, right? The type of people who sign up for this workshop are the type of people whose businesses I want to help thrive. And so that's a way of inviting in qualified leads. In that process, I let you know when you're registering for this, you're going to jump onto my mailing list. If it was your first time on my mailing list, I sent you an email that said, here's what you can expect from me. Those little steps of just taking responsibility, being transparent, seeking permission, make a huge difference to how you come into my world. And I take responsibility for that. Also, with that qualified leads is when I was talking about not having a surprise pitch, right? So if you're going to have a pitch involved, be upfront about that. Something that happens when people come on to conversations with me about the takeoff program, for example, is I will say, so we're here to talk about the takeoff program and whether it's the right fit for you. Yes. Okay, great. That's what we're talking about here. This isn't like me pretending it's a free coaching session and then pitching you takeoff in the middle as a big surprise. That's not how it works. Number 4 is converting those people into paying clients, the sale. So it's not just about the invitation to the sale. It's also about the detail of the sale, your refund policy, being clear on expectations and boundaries, taking responsibility, being transparent about how things are going to unfold. And then in your client attraction process, I think it's really important to include deliver beautifully. And the thing for me is that so many marketers talk about just make the sale, whether they do the work or not, that's on them. That's not true. You have a shared responsibility. You're co-creating with people, regardless of what they buy from you. It is a co-creation process, and you need to take responsibility for how you deliver to those clients and whether the thing that they bought helps them to achieve the outcomes that you promised that it would help them to achieve. Yes, it is a shared responsibility. It's not all your responsibility. It's not all their responsibility. It is a shared responsibility, but you want to make sure that you are taking responsibility for your part in delivering and helping them to achieve the outcomes that you promise. So now that you've heard all of that, this is where I want to invite you to let me know what are some of the strategies and tools that you might be starting to question. Are there things you've been told to do or you were thinking about doing, or certain marketing strategies where you think, I'm not 100% sure if this is grounded in consent. I'm not 100% confident in this one. I'd love for you to let me know about those in the chat box now. So have a think about, maybe you've been told to say there's only 3 spaces when really you could take on more. Or maybe you've been told to, send urgent emails or something along those lines. Yeah. So I would love to know from you, like, what are some of those strategies and tools that you're now starting to question, and where you're not 100% sure, right? So the ones where you're like, oh, that is so not consent based. We can agree that's not consent based, right? We can totally agree on those. But the ones where you're not sure are the ones that I'd really love us to have a discussion about today. So Shelley said all 7 mentioned earlier. Yeah. So Sam said closing on the call, right? So that's a really beautiful one, Sam. So that whole sense of I need to close on the call or else I'm going to lose them. So the best advice I can give you is that's just not true. And one of the things that I love to do whenever I'm having a conversation with someone is I love to just ask them, how are you feeling about that? How does that feel to you? And I'm quiet and I listen. Now, some people, I'll be honest with you, some people, they're like, what's the link? I'm signing up. I'm ready to go. And I'm totally okay to do that. I also have a very generous refund policy. So if they change their mind within the first 30 days, they are able to get their money back, right? So, and if it's for VIP one-to-one stuff, they'll get the portion back. So I've got a very clear refund policy when it comes to my VIP packages. But the thing that I do is if people say, yeah, I'm really keen, how long do I have to think about it? I'll say to them, you have plenty of time to think about it. If it's a special limited time offer or something along those lines and there is a deadline, I'll tell them what the deadline is. If the deadline is straight away. So this happened in my last launch of the Takeoff program, there was a deadline and someone had booked in a chat to talk to me about it, and it was 2 hours before the deadline. And I said to her at the start of the call, now I know there's 2 hours until the extended payment plan is closing for Takeoff, but from our discussion today, if you decide that you want to join Takeoff, I don't want you to feel rushed in that decision. So I'm going to set up a little special link for you and extend that offer for 48 hours, just so that there's no pressure on it. Now, that person signed up about 2 hours after the deadline ended, and she sent me an email and said, one of the reasons why I signed up was that you didn't make me stick to the deadline. Thank you so much. This is the kind of business that I want to run. So you don't need to close on the call. It is just not true that if they don't close on the call, you've lost them forever. have a follow-up process. So I will say to people, if it's a VIP thing and they say, how long do I have to decide? Generally, the reason why they need to decide sooner rather than later is I only open up VIP spaces in limited times. So I will say to them, look, I've still got 3 spaces for this. So there's no rush for you to decide. What I will do is let me follow up with you in a couple of days and see how you're feeling once you've had a chance to sleep on it for a couple of nights. And if we get down to 1 or 2 spaces left, I'll also let you know, just so that if I am getting to the point where I'm going to close off the offer, you'll have plenty of notice. How does that sound? So there are a lot of ways to keep your boundaries about not, constantly changing deadlines, but also ensure you're giving people enough space to make that decision in a space of empowerment and really think about it. Jude said, I haven't been comfortable with anything I've been told so far, so was rather lost on what to do. Jude, I have another great resource for you as well. So there are a couple of things I will say is, one, my $0 Facebook marketing strategy free training you can access at any time, tashcorbin.com/0. And that is all consent-based and consent-driven. So it's a great starting point. And I'm also running another free workshop in April. It's on fast tracking your business results. And I'm going into detailed marketing strategy in that. So we'll also be able to talk about that too. Jody said, what would it mean for you if we could sort this? How is this flowing on and impacting other areas of your life in the sales calls? So there's a difference between understanding the priority for this person versus making the, dialing up the fear or the pain. Okay. So, for example, what would it mean for you if we could sort this? I think is a solid enough question. However, it's where you loop it back and you start pressuring it based on that I have a problem with. So, for example, let's say someone said to me, really thinking about takeoff. I'm really loving to do it. And I can really see how your marketing strategies are the ones that I want to implement. And I might say, great. And so what's your income goal? And they'll say, oh, I'd really love to get to 5K months. That's definitely doable in the takeoff program. What is the impact of that? Like, what would that mean to you? Now, I don't normally ask that, to be honest with you, but I would be okay with asking that if that was something that I was, thinking about using. And what would that 5K mean to you? Yeah, that would mean I could leave the job and I could do this and I could do that. Great. Let's really anchor that. I love that for you. Move on. What I do not do is then go back and say, you've got 2 options. Get to the 5K month and leave your job and get all the things that you talked about and think about the children, or continue to suffer. Because there's not 2 options. There's 11 billion options from here. So the part of that process that I have a problem with is the loop back. That's the part that I don't love. So I don't have a problem with just really understanding how it's connected to other parts of their life or what that would mean, or is, I would be more likely to ask, like, on your range of priorities, where does this sit right now? Like, what's going to get in the way of us actually getting this to happen? I'm more interested in, like, what's going to stop us from getting you to the result that you want, not like dialing up the urgency by tuning into, won't someone think of the children and that sort of thing. Yeah. And yeah, Shelley said, I can second that. I've had to think about it. No rush. 3 calls, 3 bookings. Nice. What's the difference between dialing up urgency and dialing up pain points? So again, dialing up pain points is where you're finding where that pain is. So like, oh, I'm really frustrated. I feel like my business is going nowhere, and then future pacing it, right? Well, what if in a year's time you're still really frustrated and you're still going nowhere and you're still in this and you're still in that? That's not the foregone conclusion. It's not a binary decision. It's not that the reason why that process is used is to make people feel like I have 2 options. You're blinkering people into 2 options: buy from me or suffer. And that's not that's not a sales strategy that I use at all. I'm very open with people about the other options that they might have. And I will often say to people, if they're interested in joining the takeoff program, they're like, but I want one-on-one, but I want one-on-one. I'm like, Well, inside the Takeoff program, you do get access to me one-to-one in a group environment. But if you feel like you're wanting that really high touch, really high attention meeting with a person every week as a business mentor, then I've got mentors I can recommend to you, but that's not something I could do in your price range. So I'm totally happy to talk about that as well. So I'm not making it a binary decision, and that's the difference. Yeah. And so in terms of urgency, the big one for me is there are times where it is urgent. Like I'm actually closing the doors to Takeoff in April. So there is some urgency. If people want to join, they need to join before the 14th of April, right? 16th of April. So that is like a deadline that I will be keeping strong. And that's because I'm protecting that intensive coaching period that I'm having with the Takeoff students in that 90 days. But there's a difference between that and saying, if you don't sort this out by tomorrow, everything's going to go to poo and you're never going to be successful. That's the difference. And so I think there's a difference between speaking to people's urgency or speaking to people's pain versus dialing up and pressurizing it in order to make the sale. That's the difference. Yeah. Lovely. Ignore terrible spelling. I can't type. No, that's all good. If you need to find money for your kids, would you find it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's gross, Shelley. It wasn't until I heard you talking about consent that it clicked for me why I was hating working with my last business mentor. Everything she was teaching me felt wrong. Colleen, yeah. And it's women who are like, oh, there must be something wrong with me, right? I don't feel like I could say that. And oh, you've got a mindset block, right? Nah. That's not true. It's not true. Rachel said, when you have a free chat and then explain your option, how do you let them think about it, respond? Is that the point at which you say, how does that feel? Yeah, absolutely, Rachel. So let's say you have a chat with someone and you say, okay, here, and I would say it's not about like, I don't give people like a suite of options to work with me. I'll say, well, based on what we've talked about today, here's what I recommend. I think you should jump into the Takeoff program. And here's why. 1, 2, 3. This is what it includes. The investment is $1,995. How does that sound? And then I'm quiet. Just shush. If they've got challenges or questions or anything, let them talk about it. That's important. I think that's a really important part of the process. Yeah. So I will say, here's what it is. Here's what it, and I don't talk about everything, right? I don't give all the detail of it because if they've got questions about some of the detail, they'll ask. Some people don't have questions about the detail. So why would I preemptively give them a 20-minute spiel? I just keep it really simple. Yeah, keep it really simple and then ask, how's that sound? What do you think? And then zip it. Beautiful. Yeah, gaslighting. We must be broken. Yes. Oh, so horrible. Okay, let me move forward because I've got a few that you might think are a little bit innocuous, but they are actually non-consent based. So number 1 is the string of yeses. Anyone been to a Tony Robbins event? Yes, 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 yes. That is actually programming you. Anyone been to a Tony Robbins event where at the end he starts talking about he's gonna get into a sales pitch and he starts saying, by now, you'll have started thinking about blah, blah, blah. And by now, you're probably wondering, da, 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 da. Do you know what he's saying? By now, da, 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 da. By now, da, 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 da. 3 minutes later, sales pitch. That is not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence. Yes. It's disgusting. Yeah. Right. So, and same thing, like, so we're both on the same page about this, right? Yes. And we're both doing this. Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you're going to really feel like you're going to be able to grow your business, right? Yes. And the goal is to get them to say yes 6 times so that when you say, and the investment is da, 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 are you ready to invest? They go, yes. That's the entire reason why the string of yeses is used. It's not built on consent. It's built on getting people to say things for the sake of saying things. It's built on actually getting people into a hypnotic state. That's what you're doing. And it's manipulation without consent. People didn't say to you, I give you consent to hypnotize me into buying something today, so don't do it. The 11 emails in 5 days. I believe that unless you say, I'm going to send you multiple emails a day that you do not do it. You need to be upfront about that. Yes, 100%. Manufactured scarcity, making it scarce falsely. I'm not saying scarcity, I'm saying manufactured scarcity. If you're only taking 20 spots in your program, that is amazing. If you are taking 100 people, but you pretend there's only 20 spots left, that is manufactured scarcity. Manufactured urgency, those fake countdown timers, saying there's a time limit on something when there isn't, or manufactured. Hoop jumping tests. So there's a one where you send an email to people. I can't believe people think this is okay. You send an email to people and you say it's got the link in it, but you don't put the link in it. And they only get the link if they reply and say, oh, there was no link in it. You're making people work harder to prove to you that they are action takers so they will buy your thing. That is no good, a no-go for me. I don't like hoop jumping. I don't like testing my audience. They did not consent to being tested. They asked me for the link. I'm going to send the link. I'm not going to lie to them and say the link's in there when knowingly the link is not in there. That is gross. No controls. This is a big one. Have you ever been to a replay of a webinar or a replay of a training and you can't pause it? You have to listen to the whole thing. You can't skip to the end. You can't go back on something. Again, that is actually not consent driven. You are forcing people to do something in your specific order. And I mean, it's also not accessible. It does not work with people, for people with learning disabilities or who need to go back and rewind and re-listen to something. It doesn't work with mums who kids come and say, Mum, wipe my bum in the middle of it. And they need to pause it in order to be able to go and wipe that bum. And then you can't pause it. So then you miss it. So then you have to go back to the very damn start of it. That is not consent driven. That is not. So don't use that. Pretend live webinars, we all talked about that one. And phishing questions. Phishing questions are not consent-based. Full stop. You might call it borderline. You might call it, oh, well, people are happily answering. No, they did not consent to being chased and sold to simply because they answered your market research question. Phishing is a no-go. If anyone else thinks of any others as we finish up today, please do let me know in the chat box. I'm always willing to have a conversation about this. And also feel free to DM me about these as well. So you have absolute permission to slide on into my DMs if you want to talk about consent-based practices. So think about that client attraction process. And I can get any marketing strategies to work, right? I don't care if you choose Instagram or you choose Facebook or you choose TikTok. But when you choose that strategy to reach a new audience, ground it in consent. Look at those 4 pillars and whether you're complying with them and whether you feel like you really are nailing it in the space of consent. Same with when you're nurturing, inviting in those qualified leads, having those sales conversations or converting people into paying clients and delivering in your programs. Ensure that you are taking responsibility. Now, as I said at the start of today, if you are interested in having me as your mentor, I would love to be your mentor. I would love to work with you. So if you'd like to build your client attraction process on a solid foundation of consent with a mentor who walks that talk, then I would love to be that mentor for you. And if you would like to come and work with me, the best way that I work with people is through my group mentoring program, Takeoff. So this program includes some step-by-step modules on the tangible, practical side of nailing your niche, getting your messaging clear, getting out on social media, that lean business process of attracting and converting your ideal clients. It is how I walk you through the process of building your client attraction process. Reach, nurture, lead generation, conversion, and delivering beautifully. It's not just a self-study course though. So yes, there are modules in the Takeoff program, but it's built on adult learning principles. So at the end of each module, we connect. You are invited to come and share in our Facebook community what your decisions are, and you get my feedback on your marketing processes and decisions all along the way. The Takeoff program also includes live support calls, so you get direct mentoring from me. And between now and June, we actually have 3 live support calls every single month. So you can jump on. It's a group call, and then we have a queue. And one by one, you jump into the hot seat and we discuss where you're up to in the takeoff process, what decisions you're making in your business, and I can give you my feedback and mentoring live on those calls. And we also have a beautiful, highly connected Facebook community where you again get access to me for feedback and mentoring, as well as masterminding with the other women in the Takeoff program. At a time when business coaches are all about passive income, which means they're not going to help you once you buy from them, the Takeoff program is a haven of support, accountability, actual mentoring, and access to someone who deeply cares about your success. That's me. That's me. So if you'd like to come and join us, you get access for the life of the program. As long as Takeoff exists, you're still a member. Caroline joined it, kicked her business off. She's doing great things. She's still in the Takeoff program. She can still come play with us. And you get access to the life of the program. If I do at any point in the future decide to close the Takeoff program, I will give you a year's warning. So you'll have a whole year from when I decide to close it. But I have no plans to close it. You get access to all the updates and calls. I am about to go on a solo retreat tomorrow. And on that retreat, I'm actually re-recording the Takeoff program with some updated modules. And we've included some new Instagram strategies in the Takeoff program. When I update it, you get all the updates without having to pay again. All the live calls. So people always ask me a question about this, like, so how many live calls do I get to come to? I'm like, all of them. I'm like, okay. And so for how long can I come to the live calls? I'm like, as long as there's live calls. So you can come to as many of those live calls as you want to. You get access to all of them. If I ever do a bonus for Takeoff students, or for new people joining the Takeoff program, existing Takeoff students also get access to that bonus. And the price is currently 1,995 Australian dollars. So it's Australian dollars. And if you are an Australian resident, there's GST on top of that. So it's 10% GST for Australian residents. If you're not based in Australia, there's no GST. It's 1,995 Australian dollars. And on the 16th of April, I will be closing the doors to Takeoff to new students for 3 months. So for 3 months, the sales page for the Takeoff program, you won't be able to buy it. It will be registering for a wait list instead until I reopen the doors. And at this stage, the doors are not opening until July, potentially August. So we are going into an intensive mentoring period. I'm bringing in this new Instagram strategy into the Takeoff program. I've got extra live calls in the Takeoff program at this time. And so it's important that we're all on the same page and we all go through that process together. So to protect that intensive mentoring period, we won't be welcoming in new members between the 16th of April and mid-July, April, May, June, July, mid-July, maybe even August. And then I will be announcing in July or August when we are reopening the doors to the Takeoff program to new students. Also, just to be really upfront and transparent with you, when I do reopen the doors, there will be a small window to join at 1,995 Australian dollars. Then the price is going up. So I will be increasing the price of the Takeoff program later this year. So if you are interested in the Takeoff program and you want to go and check it out, tashcorbin.com is the place to go. tashcorbin.com/takeoff is the link that you'll need. I'll also send it to you with the replay of this workshop. And if you've got any questions about it, you're welcome to email support@tashcorbin.com anytime. And keep those questions coming up. I see some more questions are coming up about consent-based practices. Keep them coming. And if you would like to learn more about the Takeoff program, or if you've got any questions, you can ask them here, or you're welcome to email them through to me as well. Caroline, it's going to be super fun. Super, super fun. We're going to have some fun Instagram play over the next few months. So Shelley said, Tash, what are your thoughts about people who charge USD as well? I see you charge 80. Look, I think that's a personal decision that people make. I know as an Australian consumer, when I see an Australian selling something and I assume it's in Australian dollars and then I go to check out and it's US dollars, it makes me feel gross I'm like, oh, it's way more expensive than I thought. And I don't ever want people to have that gross surprise. So I choose to charge in Australian dollars. And I'm pretty sure I'll continue to charge in Australian dollars forever, to be honest with you. I'm Australian. I'm based in Australia. My living expenses are in Australian dollars. Some of my business expenses are in USD, but that's my decision as a business owner. I love when US peeps go to buy the takeoff program, like, oh, it's only 1,500 US. It's not even 2,000 US dollars. It's a beautiful surprise to them. I love that. And so I'd rather have that impact on US peeps than have it's US on Australian peeps. That's why I made that decision. But it's totally up to you. I just, to me, it just feels more congruent. I'm Australian. It's an Australian business. Business is based in Australia. I charge in Australian dollars. Yeah, that's how I handle that. And I know I have a lot of very successful business friends and people in that I'm in masterminds with, and like even they have secret like charging in Australian dollars for Aussies every now and then throughout the year, and their conversion rates skyrocket. It is a psychological barrier for people paying in USD. So I decide to make it easy on myself. I just choose the easier way to do it. I just charge in Aussie dollars. I'm so jelly you're off on retreat. Yes, Nicole. I'm on my way to Queenstown tomorrow. Lovely. Jude said, can't afford it at the moment, but definitely interested. Yes. Awesome. So, Jude, we will be on the 16th of April. We'll be changing it over to the waitlist. So make a little note maybe in your calendar for the 17th of April or 19th of April will be the Monday, to go and sign up for the waiting list. Yeah. Go and sign up for the wait list for Takeoff. And then you'll stay informed. Makes sense to add GST too. That's awesome. Yeah, great. Thanks, Shelley. Tiffany said, I love the surprise of lower cost when I buy an AUD. Yes, but I'm also very aware of that. And any post that I sell and post that I sell in US. Yeah, because you're based in the US. It's not incongruent. I know you're in the US, right? So it would be weird for you to charge in Australian dollars. You're in the US. So I know your prices are USD. It's no drama. Because you're based in the US. For me, it's more like I've been listening to someone, they've got an Aussie accent, I know they're based in Australia, and then I get really excited about the program. They say it's $2,000. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I go 2,000 US. I'm like, that's the surprise. Yeah. I had a mentor that said you need to be charging in US. You explain that all your expenses are in US and it's just easier and you make more money. Yeah. And I've seen that used over and over again. And then I went and did this amazing, amazing mastermind thing with some other Australians several years ago now. And that was the same thing. And all of them said, but my mentor said most of my expenses are going to be in USD, so I should be charging in USD to save me from those fluctuations in the foreign exchange rates. And I was like, are your prices so low that if the US dollar becomes a little bit more expensive to us, you're going to be in financial trouble? And they're like, no. And I was like, and so how much of your expenses are in USD? And they were like, well, my VA is in USD and my web hosting is in USD, but my Facebook ads I'm charged in Australian dollars, and my that's my biggest expense. And then my ops manager is my second biggest expense, and she's based in Australian dollars. I was like, well, then it's not actually true. Like, don't just listen to what people say to you and then just repeat it. Be discerning. Like, put some thought into this. Is that actually true? No. And right now you might make more money because it sounds like that's the thing, right? People think, well, if it's 2,000 US, that sounds cheaper than 2,700 Australian dollars. But I have people who I have spoken to, and they have had both options available, and people have chosen the one that's in AUD, even though it's slightly more expensive when you work out the exchange rate, because people want to buy in the currency that makes sense to them. So it's all BS. It's absolutely BS. And that's the thing, right? It's that congruence. That's the whole point of this presentation today. Yeah. Vicky said, I'm a service-based business, nothing to sell yet, no courses, anything. Should I get these up before signing up? No. So Vicky, actually in the Takeoff program, I'm teaching and we're working on you creating scalable services. So it's service-based businesses. So if you are wanting to create like digital courses and sell them, I don't teach that in the Takeoff program. So the Takeoff program is about growing a service-based business with consent-based practice, scalable marketing practices, and making your business work as easily as possible by getting your foundation sorted really effectively and quickly. So I would say that if you're wanting to create group programs and those sorts of things, then that to me is the stage after the Takeoff program. So the Takeoff program is service-based businesses. Yep. Lovely. Shelley said, I love programs who are USD, they say, but we'll charge in your currency. Yeah, it is a mental block for people. So it's just easier for me to not deal with that mental block, to be honest. Good one, Nicole. Oh, Vicky's a professional organizer. Amazing. I love it, Vicky. Yeah. So if you want to build your professional organizing business and have your clients coming in a scalable marketing strategy, being paid appropriately, nice and profitable, you want your marketing processes to be nice and simple and easy, then that's what we will do in the Takeoff program. Yes. She said, what is your price? And just took it off her price. Oh, I love that, Nicole. Great. Great. All right. Any other questions, please do let me know in the chat box. Otherwise, we will close it up there. Thank you so much for joining me for this workshop. As I said at the start of the presentation, like this is something that's like a bit hard for me, and it feels like it's like really being vulnerable by sharing this with potential strangers. But you will see me talk more about consent-based marketing more and more. And I think this is a conversation we all need to be having online, taking responsibility, being leaders, and showing the way, and showing that we not only can we be just as successful as those who use fear-based strategies, but actually we'll be more successful because we're so aligned and it's so much easier. And you don't have to force yourself to do things to people that you don't really want to do. Yes. All right. Jude said, thanks for today. No problem at all, Jude. Thank you so much for being here. Love your no BS. Thank you so much, Shelley. Let me pop my video over on here now. We don't need to see those slides anymore. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for opening my eyes as to why I feel yucky when it's done to me. Now I can make better choices. Love it, Nicole. And I always say this, if you're going to, and as I said, like, you don't have to work with me, right? You could go off and work with someone else. But what I would suggest you do, if you are looking at ever working with someone in sales or marketing or social media, go and sign up to their mailing list and see how they treat you first. Because if they treat you with non-consent-based strategies, if they treat you with fear-based strategies, guess what they're going to teach you? They're going to teach you how to do that to other people. And that's why I never bought that YouTube Ladies program, because I was like, if this is what she does to people on her mailing list in order to be successful on her YouTube stuff, I'm not in. I'm not interested. If this is the level of disregard that she has for my time and my inbox, I don't want to do on YouTube what she does because it's not built based on consent. So pay attention to the way that you are spoken to. Pay attention to the way that you are emailed and the way that you are onboarded, and whether things are transparent and whether that person takes responsibility for what happens in their spaces. And if they're not behaving in the way that you want to behave in your business, don't buy from them, because you can end up in that same space where they start teaching you things and then you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. That feels gross. And then they say, well, you've got a mindset block, and you end up back where you started. So that's why I say, like, if you're going to buy from someone, if you're going to go and, there are amazing consent-driven marketers out there, right? Pay attention to the way that you are treated when you sign up for their free stuff. Pay attention to the way that you are spoken to. Pay attention to those 4 pillars in their business and marketing, because if they haven't got those 4 pillars, then the marketing strategies they teach you will not have those 4 pillars. So it's a really easy way to discern who you want to buy from and learn from, and who you don't want to buy from and learn from. I love it. I wish this was regulated. It's so yuck. Shelley. And look, Shelley, this is the same in so many different spaces. There are people who will take advantage of the research and the marketing and the data and use that to their benefit and to other people's detriment. And then there are amazing leaders who are doing amazing work. What we need to do is continue to reward those people who are taking that responsibility. Yes. Thank you. Ooh, a little bit, sorry. Thank you, Colleen. It is an important topic. It absolutely is. All right, I'll close it up there. Thank you so much. I know, Shelley, I wish it was regulated too, but honestly, there's so many insidious and weird ways that people do this that there would always be people trying to get their way around it. When GDPR came out in Europe and you needed to get informed consent for people to sign up to your mailing list, the number one question that people were asking online was, how do I get around GDPR? Not, how do I ensure that I'm compliant with GDPR? How do I get around it, right? So it doesn't matter how much it's regulated. There will always be people trying to find their way around it. So instead, we just take responsibility. We just step up and say, I'm not going to resort to those trickery and tactics, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to build my business based on consent-driven practice. Yeah. I love it. All right, lovely people. Thank you so much. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. I am super excited for all of your businesses and your marketing practices and to see how it all happens. As I said, slide into my DMs, send me an email, and also you're on my mailing list. So I will let you know. I think there's an email that's going out on Tuesday next week that will let you know about my next workshop, which is on fast tracking your business results, all grounded in consent. So it's the more detailed, like how to choose which marketing platform, how to choose what you're selling, how to price, those types of things. So we're going to be talking about that. Fast track your business. It'll be another live workshop, 90-minute workshop. And I think it's on the 8th of April, but all the details will be sent out to you. So keep an eye on your inbox for those if you want to come and join me for that one as well. Thank you so much, amazing peeps. Big love from me. Bye for now.